Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Randy Thurston. We go back a couple of days.
I think at least a couple.
A couple, yeah.
It's gone by fast, hasn't it?
Yeah. We actually went to high school together. You've held up better than I did. What happened here?
Well, when I walk in and saw you, you look pretty good yourself, Nick. I don't know. We're doing something right.
I guess your eyesight is going a little bit, isn't it?
That and a couple of other things are the first things that went. So.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to go down that road either. But, yeah, Randy Thurston, I think you graduated 75, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so I'm a lot younger than you. I graduated 76.
Yeah, but I still look at you as one of us.
Yeah. I guess that's good. I don't know. But so I'm going to be like the guy you see sitting at the bar that has been there all these years. What have you been up to since 75?
Still sitting here.
Yes, we're still sitting here. But you've done a lot of good stuff here.
Well, I've always, being a Puebloan, you have something special.
Uh-huh.
And I think we all as Puebloans have that.
And especially us that have stayed here, I think,
Well, especially because, again, we see something different. And it breaks my heart when we have a lot of us leaving to find their fortunes and their careers somewhere else. But a lot of them end up coming back anyhow.
Absolutely. So did you stay here the whole time?
I went to Denver when I was 23, 24, and 25 to sell commercial real estate.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as I, hit enough money up there selling big apartment buildings, I came back and been here ever since.
And that's been kind of your forte, was the real estate business as far as making a living, correct?
Well, I went to the mill day after my 18th birthday. I had enough credits to graduate early, and I went out there, and heck, I was making $2,800 as an 18-year-old, full benefits. Got married when I was 18, had 2 kids before I was 20.
Wow.
Did all of that kind of stuff. And then when back in junior high, I was a master or a professional Monopoly player. And so I always had that real estate in the back of my mind. So I quit the mill.
That would have been hard to quit, I would think, with that kind of money you guys were getting back then.
Well, I'll share a story about my dad. My dad spent his whole life career at the mill. And when I told him that I was going to quit and sell real estate, first time ever, my dad, excuse me, made a very interesting comment. He says, "I thought I had a son smarter than this." And I said, "Dad, I don't understand." He says, "Obviously you don't understand." He says, "Tell me how much you're guaranteed when you sell real estate." And I said, "0." I said, "Every day you wake up unemployed, but
right.
It also incentivizes you to really be the best version of yourself." And he said, You're making all this money. You have a family. Your wife doesn't work, but I was able to put some money away.
You've got security, basically.
And he didn't talk to me with respect until I started making the really big money in real estate. Then he said, "I think you made the right decision."
That had to make you feel a little good.
Well, it did, because it's tough when your dad thinks you're stupid.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for that. But shortly after that, that's when the mill took a downturn, I would imagine, right? If I'm thinking correctly and chronologically or whatever, right?
Well, I went out there in 75, and it was, I think, 81 that they stopped making steel.
Right.
And it became a recycling site. So they lost thousands and thousands of jobs overnight. Right. And Pueblo, of course, I was selling real estate in Pueblo at that point, and that also took a big downturn.
Nobody had any money.
Values went down. It was really an interesting time, but we came back, we survived, and here we are today.
There it is. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Randy Thurston. We graduated high school together, well, a year apart, I guess I should say, but South High School there on Hollywood. And where did you live over in that area?
I lived in Sunset Park on University Circle.
Oh, you were one of the rich kids then.
Well, I guess you can call us rich, but like we said, my dad worked at the mill, but the house, when he bought that house, I think he paid $18,000 or $22,000 or something like that. I remember Pace. It was a Pace Construction home.
Pace Construction, yeah. Leonard,
dad, yeah. Another one of our buddies from high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did you go to Pitts, or did you end up going to Roncalli? You stayed at Pitts, I think, right?
I did. So I went to Sunset, obviously, because it was directly across the street, and then went to Pitts, and then went to South.
Yeah. See, I had to do that split where they took half of us, and went to Roncalli. half of them stayed at Pitts, and we brought Corwin in that kind of split up, and it was a crazy time back then.
Well, it was, and then if you remember, because you were part of it, is they closed Roncalli
Because it was a Catholic school.
because it was a Catholic school, and threw everybody into South, and that's why our graduating class in '75 had all of the Roncalli, South, and I think, well, I don't think I know. We had like 625
Amazing.
seniors graduate
Yeah.
when I did. That's why we know everybody there.
I think I was 597, I think is what we had, something like that.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
And nobody has ever come close to that level of graduation classes other than our two classes here.
Yeah, and that was all in that transition from junior high to middle school and all that, and crazy time here in Pueblo. So real estate business has always obviously been pretty good to you then?
Well, real estate is an interesting thing. When it came to the career of real estate, there is no better career. Every day you wake up, and I said the downside of it is you wake up unemployed. There's no guarantee of anything. But you're able to create, you're able to help people. I mean, the level of people that I've been able to have a relationship with, that their lives have changed by the real estate choices that they've made.
That's awesome.
The smiles that you see the parents and then the kids and now the grandkids all come through, all with that foundation of a real estate transaction that took place in the past.
Owning a piece of Pueblo. That's a good thing. We're going to talk about more of that coming up here. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday, brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. Faster, easier, cheaper. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Randy Thurston. We go clear back to high school days and probably junior high days. I just didn't realize it, I guess. But, people may know, obviously, that you do the real estate and different things because they see your name on the signage around town and that. But people that are maybe new to Pueblo don't know that you were in politics at one time. Is that correct?
It is correct, but I hate the word politics.
That's why I said it. I knew it'd fire you right up.
I'll get the red out of my face.
Yeah. Politics. Yeah.
No, I make the distinction because I never had any inkling or any experience or anything with politics, elected officials, government, anything until I made the choice to jump in. But I've always considered myself an elected official that serves the people, where a politician's a little different.
So what would you say a politician is?
Well, I make the distinction between politics, politicians, and leadership. And I support leaders. I have people now asking me to support them for their runs in office and everything. And I said, I have one simple test you have to pass. You have to be a leader. I will not support politicians. And they said, well, what's that? In fact, recently, Zach Swearingen was running or announcing, and Channel 5 was there, and I was talking with Andy Cohen and made that comment. He says, well, Randy, tell me what's the difference between a politician and a leader?
Right.
I said, it's real simple. I said, every politician has something in common. 100% they have this in common. They have a hidden agenda. Where a leader has transparency. They want to raise the bar for everyone. They look at the citizens and the people that are their constituents as with respect. It's something that they want to raise the bar. They want to do the best version. And sometimes with politics and politicians, it gets skewed with special interest or with the hidden agendas of things that take it a direction that doesn't serve the best of what it could be for people.
That's awesome. That's an awesome way to look at that. I didn't even think about that. People all the time tell me, why don't you run for something? I'm thinking, well, because people kind of halfway like me now. If I did that, then it'd be the other way.
Well, again, it's tougher to be a leader than a politician.
Sure.
But it's the right thing to be a leader.
And we're going to talk about some of that coming up here. But fun times when we think back about some of the crazy stuff we did over the years and that. But Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5. In today, Randy Thurston with me on a Friends Friday, and thinking back about some of the crazy stuff that happened at South High. And you were talking about one that I forgot to. You mentioned it here just a second ago off the air, but one that has gone down in history and gone down in infamy.
Well, what's interesting with the class that we had and the dynamics and the type of people we had, we were all anomalies. We were different.
Right.
We weren't cut from the same cloth that everybody else was.
And as you mentioned, that we went to South, and the classes were huge back then because of all the things. So, certain times of the day, if I remember correctly, it was like 10 in the morning when everybody was there. It was pretty congested.
It was packed. You couldn't move through the hallways. But what stands out for me is, and I think it's okay to use his name, is Tom Cullen.
Tom Cullen.
Tom Cullen. And again, he was one of us that was unique and different. And
good guy.
Great guy.
I still see him today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he decided, and I don't know, I wasn't there when he made that decision, to bring his motorcycle inside the hallways.
Inside the school.
Inside the school, and go up and down the halls on his motorcycle.
Now, if you've ever been in South, there's stairs that go up towards the administration offices and things like that. So I don't remember if he jumped off of those or if he was trying to get up there or whatever. But
I think he jumped off. I think he was up there, and then he jumped onto the main level there. But I know it was quite the conversation, and we were all really proud of him there.
I remember seeing it because I was in the hall, and I didn't know who it was because he had a helmet on and all that. If I remember correctly, he went out the door. Somebody was holding the door there on the south end of South High open, and he was going to fly out that door, and his foot peg caught the edge of the door, and he almost lost it when he came out the door and that. But I also remember all the black marks he was cleaning up off of the floor days later too.
Right. There was a consequence to his actions.
Absolutely.
But the memory, here we are talking about it, 50 years later?
50 years later, we're still talking about it. But yeah, South High School. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. Friends Friday brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's Greatest Hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Randy Thurston. We're talking about some of the days back in high school because we go back that far. But later on, you went into real estate, and then we started talking politics a little bit. Then I got sidestepped with going back to motorcycle jumps and things like that. But you were city council and then president of city council for quite a while, right?
Well, I served in council for 8 years, and being president of city council gives you kind of being the spokesperson for the community.
Uh-huh.
And one thing
that was before the mayor days. You were
way before mayor days.
You were kind of like the mayor.
Well, that's what they would. The president of city council had the same role as the mayor does.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And what was something that I always wanted to do was promote the real Pueblo, not the perception Pueblo, because for whatever reason we've always had the. Pueblo's got crime and Pueblo's got drugs.
Yeah, like we're second-class citizens here in Pueblo, which people from Pueblo know better.
We know better. We're the shining stars, but people on the outside they call us Pewtown.
Right.
I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. But the reality is, if you don't stand up and fight for who you really are, by default, people start really sticking those conversations. And one thing I realized back then is we have more assets, we have more resources, we have more great things as a community that any community I've ever seen. But what we didn't have was a recipe and a chef. But we have the ingredients, and when you really look at Pueblo for what we have, we've got enough water for a population of over 400,000. We've got I-25, Highway 50, 300 days of sunshine. We've got Lake Pueblo. We've got some of the best golf courses. I mean, anything you can want or imagine, we have here, and we don't have the traffic nightmares that you have up north.
Right.
I mean, again, and I'm not going to take our time going through all of this, but to me, it's so exciting to be part of that fabric of Pueblo and get that promoted for what it really is. But it's been a battle because, again, the outside perception is Pueblo is
well, so
not
I think
the place
sometimes the media, not necessarily the media here in Pueblo, but the media north of here kind of puts Pueblo in a bad light sometimes, I think.
Well, they do because we're an easy target for them to beat up. And, it makes them look better. I always tell people when you beat up somebody, you're trying to knock them down so you can look them in the eye.
Did Wallace Cotton actually knock you down one time?
It's a long story.
We don't even
know the story. But he shot a spit wad during lunch on me, and everybody was laughing and whatever. And
so you had to defend yourself.
Well, I did, and so we went outside and we got into a fight, and We both ended up with big lips that hung down to the ground.
And this was like 1973, something like that?
No, it was in junior high school.
Junior high, so it would have been before that.
But I still love the man. He's
Yeah,
all right.
I can tell you I can tell you stories we can't talk about here on the radio. It's all good stuff. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, once again, is Randy Thurston, former city council president, realtor here in Pueblo, longtime friend from way back. But we're talking about some of the stuff. South High, did you play sports at South?
You know, I played football. I was kind of tiny. I was like 148 pounds.
That's kind of how I was in high school. You know, it didn't stay that way very long. I always thought, man, if I could weigh 180 pounds, I'd be an animal.
Yeah.
Well, I weighed 180 pounds for like 2 days, and I just kept going. You know.
Well,
So you played football?
I played defensive end, which isn't something that a 148-pound person plays, but I was pretty fast.
Uh-huh.
But on the roster, they put me down at 165 pounds. They didn't want.
I thought you were really fast at 100. Man, that guy moves for 165.
But it was the year when I was a senior that we were ranked number one for the whole state, and it was back when 4A.
Right.
Before they did the 5A and 6A.
No, 4A was
4A
playing
was
Denver
it.
teams and everything.
We
yeah.
were playing the best of the best. And we were pretty cocky. Howard Ballage was our running back. And I could give you a list a mile long of the great guys that played football. And we had our preseason game with Trinidad.
Right.
And we didn't even take it serious. I mean, Trinidad.
Was Trinidad 4A then? They wouldn't have been 4A.
No, they weren't 4A, but that's why I said they were under us.
They were like 3A or 2A or
something like
that.
that. But we went down there and had an attitude that we're number one and all this.
We're going to clean house when we get here.
Now, the bus trip down was fun. We laughed a lot. Coming back,
Sure.
we were bandaging and bloody-nosed and everything.
Oh, really?
But we got beat 40, I think it was 49-7.
So you've got new respect for Trinidad now, then.
Well, there was an interesting guy there that he went both offense and defense and everything, and it was 0-0 because I remember those numbers.
50 years later.
50 years later.
Uh-huh.
His name was Taylor, and again, now I don't want to say this as an exact because I'm not sure, but I think he was like 29 years old.
In high school still.
And he had just gotten out of prison.
Ooh.
But long story short, it was good. We humbled ourselves. We came back and took the South Central League deal, and the team that we lost to in that ended up taking state, which was Wasson.
Wasson, which was animals in Wasson, man. They were great teams. Wasson and Mitchell had great teams back then.
Yeah.
Speaking of South High, I remember 75. South High basketball team was unbelievable back in those days.
Man. Were you up to the game when they played Cherry Creek before the finals for the state game? It was incredible. Brunjack and Mativi and Golob and these guys. I mean, Cherry Creek should have been Ranson. Cherry Creek should have won.
Right.
But South was on, and they just, I mean, they were fast. They broke, and it was just incredible. And they beat Cherry Creek.
Right.
And the next night they played Wheat Ridge for the state, but South was they used all their energy up in the Cherry Creek game, and we lost the state game there. But again, it was just an incredible time.
And
great
sports. We
sports.
had such big schools that, man, we had best of the best.
Well, you look at Cherry Creek, and all that. I mean, its school was so much larger than ours.
Right.
And here they have a new respect for down Pueblo with South High School.
There you go. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. Friends Friday brought to you by Advantage Home Mortgage. It's Pueblo's Greatest Hits, KPHT 95.5. Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday as we talk about some of the old stuff going on. Well, after a while, you were, again, on City Council, president of City Council. What was the biggest thing you remember going on while you were on council that maybe changed Pueblo a little bit?
Well, there were a lot of things, but the two biggie was the water deal, the SDS, and a smoking deal. And both deals, I would never vote on city council till I pushed the button because I always wanted all the information. For me, the more information you get, the better choice you can get.
Right.
And there's always the bureaucrats that have hidden agendas or the power players that only tell you one side, and that's all they want you to know. So I always went that extra mile. So on the water deal, there was people to this day still think that Colorado Springs took our water, and that's not true. It was zero. We scored the biggest home run for ourselves when we did the SDS legislation on it with that, because Colorado Springs, Aurora, Fort Carson, all of the users down here have to give up part of their water that their ratepayers pay for the water to have come down and flow through the Arkansas River to give us minimum flows that can never be taken. That will never dry up.
So the flow going through Pueblo and down through the Arkansas Valley, and that will always be the same.
It will never. Well, it'll never dry up. We'll always have minimum flows, and we don't pay for that water. They do, and people in Pueblo don't realize that. The big story was when they take and Colorado Springs only wanted their water that they had water rights to. People look at the reservoir and they see that, and they think that Pueblo owns all that water. We don't. The city of Pueblo owns about 13% of the water in the reservoir. Everything else is owned by everybody else, and it's a federal reservoir.
Right, Frying Pan, Arkansas.
And we get water shipped over from the other side of the Continental Divide, besides our own water flow coming down here through Colorado, or through here into Pueblo. So there was this misperception, and Bob Rawlings, the owner of the newspaper, and I battled because he didn't...
Publicly, you battled.
Publicly. It was a bloodbath. And I kept, focused that he can make me look bad because he owns the newspaper and he can control the print that he puts. But I kept coming back that my obligation is to the people of Pueblo. And if I can't stand up for the people of Pueblo and do right, no matter what the consequences, I don't need to be in office. In fact, I even had that conversation with him once, that if I did what he wanted me to do, I would be selling out the people of Pueblo, and I would resign immediately. And I told him, I said, I'm not resigning. So here we are, and it got pretty nasty. There were some things that went on, and Rawlings realized that I wasn't somebody
weren't going to budge on it.
No, wasn't going to budge. Now here we are today. It's all good.
There you go. Now the smoking thing, that was basically no smoking in buildings in Pueblo. Is that where that kind of started?
Well, Doc Sova was president of council when he brought that forward, and nobody had ever really breached that to create a non-smoking in public buildings. And it was a big thing. And when he asked me about it, I told him, I says, just be careful, because you're going to open up a Pandora's box. You've got health rights and you've got business rights.
Right.
And both of them are equally important. So you're going to pit the two of them against each other, and you're going to have a mass battle in this community like we've never seen, which ended up being that way. I mean, there were recalls,
I remember, yeah.
There was all of this. And I don't know how much time we have to get into some specifics, but bottom line is Bob Rawlings wanted us to go with the compromise. Tom Jagger wanted to compromise. Joe LaSavia wanted to compromise. Concelia wanted to compromise. A lot of the big power players wanted us to not go non-smoking. They wanted it to be a compromise. Dr. Bartecki was somebody that I've always respected, and to this day I respect him. And he made an interesting comment to me. He says, Randy, people have a choice to smoke, but how about the people that work in the bars and the restaurants? They have to smoke. Other people smoke to serve them.
Secondhand smoke, hence the name. Yeah.
Secondhand smoke. And it meant a lot to me. So I get called into the office, which is Bob Rawlings' office, when he wants to have things be a certain way. And I have a great respect for Bob Rawlings in who he was in Pueblo, and I don't want there to be any
he did a lot of great stuff.
Did a lot of great stuff. But when he was passionate about something, he was pretty passionate. And long story short on it there, he knew that I hadn't decided which way I was going to vote, and it was 3-3, or however I voted is how Pueblo would go. And so he wanted to know, and I said, well, Dr. Bartecki made a pretty valid argument of not having smoking. And he says, oh, Randy, he says, I talked to Dr. Bartecki here just a couple weeks ago. He says, and he's all for the compromise. So I made the comment, well, if he's for the compromise, he must see something. I would consider it.
Right.
He instantly had a news reporter come in and write an article saying that Councilman Thurston is going to support the compromise, which wasn't what I said, but that was on a Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, because it came on the front page of the newspaper, my stance. And the people I heard, the conversations that existed, everything meant so much. Bob even called and left a message for Dr. Bartecki to make sure that he called me before the meeting to let him know what his stance was. Yeah. And so it gave a lot of validity to the whole situation. So I went ahead and took the calls, listened, and something struck me that the overall willingness of Pueblo wasn't for the compromise. So that night of the meeting, Bill Silva was running it, and he said, well, let's get on with the vote. We already know how it's going to go. We all read the newspaper, and we know where Randy's going to stand on it. And I said, Bill, just run the meeting. Let me speak last. So when it came to it, what struck me is the 7 of us on city council are 7 people that are being lobbied, we're being pressured, we're being pushed. This is such a big issue. It needs to be the voice of the people of Pueblo. So I did not vote yes or no, which I always called either chocolate or vanilla. I always went strawberry because strawberry is what represents the people of Pueblo. And I said, I want to have this go on the ballot in November. Let the people of Pueblo vote on it. And I quickly got a second, and boom, it happened. It went to the ballot, and it overwhelmingly passed to go non-smoking.
Wow.
So there's just one last piece to it there with Bob Rawlings. Is months later I ran into Bartecki, and he never called me back. And I said, the whole thing, and he laughed. He said, Randy, I had been in Vietnam for 2 months doing his free medical treatment over there. So there was no way he could have called me. So this was just to create an illusion that Bartecki was supporting this, but it all worked out. In the long run, here we are.
Pueblo people got what they wanted. And now it's like no smoking everywhere.
I had people from New York. I had people all over call, how did you do that? And it became kind of a standard thing now that people went with the non-smoking. It kind of broke the dam and let the floodwaters of what was right flow.
Well, when I tell my son, when you used to go into a restaurant, there'd be somebody sitting right next to you smoking. He can't believe it.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's greatest hits. It's Pueblo's greatest hits, KPHT 95.5 on a Friends Friday. My friend in today, Randy Thurston, former city councilman, city council president, realtor to this date. And, what people may not know, you were a talk show host for a while, too. Right here in this building.
In this building. And it was interesting because I've never been on the radio before that. And it was interesting in the fact that when I was asked to do it, it was just to make sure that there was a voice out there giving information that you might not read in the newspaper.
And this was on our sister station, 590 KCSJ.
KCSJ 590. I think right now that slot that I was in has the Glenn Beck show.
Yes, it does. It was like 9 to 10 or something like that, I think. Yeah, but interesting stuff there when you get into talk radio.
Well, I remember the very first time that...
you were the lead-in to Rush Limbaugh, too, I might add.
I was. Yeah, so Rush was right behind me here. And it was interesting because having never been on the radio, they were trying to educate me right before I went on the radio, like crack the mic.
And you didn't know what crack the mic was?
I had no idea what crack the mic meant.
I remember you saying that to me.
Like, am I hitting the microphone?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
So it was interesting, and it was about an hour, and it was live. There was no editing, anything.
Right, and phone calls.
And it was 5 days a week. And it really cost me a marriage and different things because
you're devoting so much time.
Well, because as you know, you have to prepare. And being live every day, I would get up at 4 o'clock and pull the things of interest and do the research on the people I'm going to interview and all that. And even though I still sold real estate then, it was exhaustive to do it. But I did it for a year and then told them that I needed to get on with my life other than radio, but it was all about trying to educate and inform and raise awareness.
And this was after the city council.
It was right after city council.
So that you had a whole different look on a lot of stuff, I'm sure, than a lot of people did because you had some insight on a bunch of it.
Well, one of the insights that I shared in one of my shows is, and I did this facetiously, but saying this is the truth. So I said, people that run for office, 95% of them really have a heart that they want to do what's right. They really are excited about making a difference. And I said, then they get elected and they get called to go into this room. And they walk into this room and there's a blue flashing light and a red flashing light. And they open the door and there's a big vacuum cleaner. and they get sucked in and they pop out a politician. Now, a few of us have been able to not get sucked into that politician, but when you get elected, you have influence and things,
Sure.
and all of a sudden you're everybody's best friend that wants certain things
done. Yeah.
And so it was just one of those things where I like to give that enlightenment to give everybody kind of an insight of what it's really like to be on the other side there.
There you go. Well, I know you're not on the radio normally, but we're going to talk about what you do have going on coming up here in just a couple. It's Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits. It's Pueblo's Greatest Hits, KPHT 95.5. My friend Randy Thurston in here on a Friends Friday. We're just about to wind things up. Well, you've had a pretty interesting life, my friend.
Well, I choose, since this is the only life I have, to
Might
to
as
take
well use
risk.
it. Use it all up then. Yeah.
Use it up, take risks, learn lessons. I have this thing about fear. I never make decisions based off of fear, and it's really proven to be very valuable to me there.
Well, good deal. Now, I know you're not on the radio anymore, as we talked just a few moments ago, but you do kind of have something going on here.
Well, this word came up. It's called podcast or YouTube.
Interesting, yeah.
All this kind of stuff, and it was like, wow, you can actually get your viewpoints out, and people can connect with it and really see something that they wouldn't be able to see otherwise.
Right.
So I've been working on this, the whole concept that the grass is greener on the inside. So I have a YouTube right now. If people went to it, the grass is greener on the inside with the YouTube, and you will see a whole different perspective that is just phenomenal.
Is
and
this a perspective about everything, or a perspective about Pueblo, or
it's about everything, including Pueblo, including all of the stuff that we've talked about. And what it has to do with is 95% of people are influenced by fear and ego. And we don't really realize there's any other choice, because when we're born, your parents and your friends and everybody,
society,
and they're all influencing how you think and what you do.
Sure.
You're basing it off of their acceptance. So I look at fear and ego as a way that, what if you were able to tune into yourself and really have certain benefits to where your life was yours. The outside influences you're aware of, but you still live
You
the
don't
life.
follow them.
You don't follow them. You have an understanding. And so one of the concepts I talk about is alchemy. And alchemy is, when I do public speaking, I tell people that alchemy is taking lead and turning it into gold. And I said, how many people would love to do it? And I've never had somebody not raise their hand.
Exactly.
It's phenomenal.
Sure.
So I said, in alchemy, what if I could give you one better? And this is through the process of the grass is greener on the inside. What if I could give you one better that's better than turning lead into gold, and it doesn't cost you any money, and it doesn't cost any time? Immediately, once you get this higher awareness, and that's really what the grass is greener is increasing your awareness through asking powerful questions and breaking the bonds of what has held you back. So people are just like, well, tell me, what? And I said, what if I could show you right now how you can take a lead thought and turn it into a gold thought?
Okay.
Everything that happens, whether people see it as a good thing or a bad thing, there's a gold nugget, there's an opportunity, there's something that you can grow from, there's something that you now have a new perspective, a new understanding. I mean, it goes on and on and on, that there is nothing to fear.
It's kind of like life gives you lemons, so make lemonade out of it. That kind of analogy a little bit.
Yeah, and the seeds of the lemons are actually gold nuggets.
There you go. And you can get this on your podcast?
Yes, and it's the podcast. Go to YouTube, which is the YouTube, The Grass is Greener on the Inside.
Very good. Randy Thurston, thank you so much for getting up early, coming in here on a Friends Friday. I appreciate it. And,
Nick, my pleasure.
I'm sure we'll run into each other somewhere else.
Well, just don't run into my car. I'm waiting to get my car fixed.
You're ready? I noticed it was a little damaged right now. So there you go. Friends Friday on KPHT 95.5, Pueblo's Greatest Hits.